Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Tabletop Express on this somewhat dreary, rainy evening. But I'm very excited to be coming to you all today with my top 20 games of all time. Time. My name is Anthony. I am excited to be joined by a very, very special co host on the Express tonight, a co conductor, if you will, Mr. Dan Nixon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. I think this is the second time we've done a top 10 or a top game list, so happy to be back. Interested to see what's changed since last time.
Go Birds.
Go and go birds.
Yes. So we contemplated doing a top 20 highlights of the Eagles' Super Bowl victory over the Chiefs, but we thought maybe save that for another day, maybe like the 6 month anniversary or something like that. But no, needless to say, we are here to talk about games. And Dan, to your point, there are definitely some changes on this year's list as opposed to last year and the year before. Certainly, there are some new games to the list. There are some games that probably fell off the list. And there's quite a bit of shifting around. All that being said, it is somewhat arbitrary sometimes. I am very, very, very bad at doing this stuff, okay? I am very bad at ranking things and listing favorites of stuff. It gives me a little bit of anxiety, but I always push through. And thanks to Pub Meeple, you can do that whole ranking thing, which really does help. I try not to argue with the result of that too much. I do give it a look over, but I'm happy with the way things fell, and I think there will be maybe a couple of surprises for some folks on here, but I think there'll be a lot of things that are not a surprise as well. Want to say quickly hi to everyone. Ryan is pumped for this one. If you're pumped, Ryan, think about how I feel. And another go birds from Ryan. I tell you, there's plenty of room on the Eagles bandwagon for all y'all.
Yes, sir. Yes,
We will,
sir.
we will make room. Despite what you've heard about Philly fans, we are actually quite accommodating and would more than welcome you to have a seat for sure.
Absolutely. And Anthony, I kind of wanted to ask you, you said you did Pub Meeple for this. What was your criteria? Was it what you think is a better game or what I want to play between these two?
That's what makes this so hard. Honestly, that's what makes this so hard. Because every time two games will come up, I ask myself, well, what's the better game? And then I think to myself, well, what does that mean exactly, right?
Hmm.
And if you go by, what do I want to play right now, which is another way to approach it, the fear a little bit or the anxiety comes in that a lot of times that's going to be the game that, like, if it's new to the list, how much do you want to play right now that it's like, oh my god, it's going to be like number three, number one, number two, just because it's like, mentally the hotness right now, and you want to get it
Hmm.
played a lot. And that's definitely going to come up with a couple of things on my list. I'll be honest, but it's hard at the end of the day because the other thing that I'm noticing is that I need to be more like conscious this year about actually playing through these particular games to really make sure that that's where they should be falling for me, right? Because yeah, it's really a tough call. It really is,
Yeah.
especially when two games are like so like opposite in terms of what they do and what their theme or what their mechanic is. Just like I don't know, like what day is it? Who am
Yeah.
I playing with? Is anybody learning this game for the first time? So yes, needless to say, if you watched me do that mentally, it would be like a horror show. So it's a tough one. I may even look at a list at something on the list tonight and be like, nah, that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, my kids very much often say, "What's your favorite?" or "How you rank?" I'm like, I don't rank things. I'll tell you what I'm liking, but I'm not going to rank them."
Yeah, it's tough. Um, I have this like a weird like feeling that somehow this inanimate object is going to like be upset or
Yeah.
something
Yes.
because I
Yes.
didn't include it on my list. It makes absolutely no sense. But it is what it is. What up, already sold top 20. You know it.
Oh,
What's up? Our head conductor, Chris. One of my favorite times of year, of course. Great to see Dan getting a chance to shine, too. Absolutely. We got Eddie in the house. Gritty for life. Absolutely. Eddie. Oh, lived in Philly for 4 years. Eagles fans will Eagle. They sure will. Ain't nobody going to stop them. And a quick hello to Brian Chandler, in and out tonight, and also hate the Eagles. Fair enough. But I love Anthony's top 20 list. I love that sentiment. Thank you, sir. I'm with Brian. All right, fair enough, fair enough. So, without further ado, we might as well kick this off because I want to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Hello, Squirrel.
hey, Squirrel.
What were you going to say?
Just saying hi to Squirrel.
Oh, God. Squirrel just beat us up in Castle of Burgundy today. Mr. Rao. Anywho, getting to the reason why we're here. We're going to go ahead and start with number 20. Number 20 is, in fact, a new addition to the list. But that being said, it is not a new game in general and not new to my collection. This is early on in my interest in the hobby that I picked this one up, and that is Alhambra.
Oh.
So this one actually came out in 2003. And even before that, I think there was the card game version of this, which interestingly usually goes kind of the other way. But this is from Queen Games from designer Dirk Henn. This one is a kind of a classic tile laying sort of thing. It is very much a sort of solitaire, multiplayer solitaire, you could argue, because there's not a whole lot of player interaction directly. But there sometimes is a little bit of, tension about, are you going to buy that thing that I really want? And, when is the scoring going to happen? Because in this game, you are building your tableau, your Alhambra, by buying these different colored buildings and adding them according to some building rules to your main area there. Basically, that middle thing you see there, like kind of like an orange circle, is a fountain. And in order to check if you're placing things legally or not, you hypothetically have to be able to walk from your fountain to a building that you're just adding on. If you can't get there, it's not a legal build. The buildings themselves don't, do anything per se, but they are worth different amounts of points. So you can see here, like the purple guys are worth the most, and then it kind of scales down from there. And that's important because as you score points, you're going to score more points for the more valuable buildings. The way you buy the buildings is kind of cool though, because you start off with like a random hand of currency, and it comes in these 4 colors. And the way it works is you are going to use this market and buy things from the market according to which slot they're in. So there's a building in the green currency and a blue, et cetera, et cetera. If you pay for something with the exact amount that it cost, you get to go again, which is kind of awesome. You can overpay for stuff, but you just overpay, you don't get anything back.
No change.
But if you can chain together like 2 or 3 exact change purchases in a row, you can really kind of get like a pretty kind of bonkers turn building up your Alhambra. It's like a slow kind of game. There's not in-game scoring. Like, I shouldn't say that. There's in-game scoring 3 times, but there's no like progressive scoring as you're like playing stuff down. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, this one is it's probably one of the first games I got in my collection, and I've been playing it for pretty consistently as well. And the one thing that always trips me up, no matter what I played it, I'll always try and buy that green card with green currency.
Yes.
And it's not in the green slot.
Yep.
You gotta remember to make that you're paying for the slot it's in, not the color of the card you're paying for.
It's probably the most confusing part of the game.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's really not a complicated play.
And I like the trying.
Go ahead.
I always try and go for the longest wall as well.
Yes.
I mean, I'm looking at the buildings and what everyone has, but I'm like, if I can get longest wall, I'm still happy with how I played.
Yeah, it's quite the thing to sort of manage with the wall because you do want to connect them as much as you can because you're just going to get straight up 1 point per section that you made.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's going to happen 3 times. So if you start getting it built up, you know, kind of longish pretty early, you're going to really take advantage of it. But you can also sort of start to really paint yourself into a literal, kind of corner sometimes
Hmm.
because you've got to be able to legally again place these new ones. But I really like this game. Again, very easy to get to the table. I just recently picked up the big box of this. And by pick up, I mean I traded for something with Ryan Espen. So that's sitting on the table right over there. It has a whole buttload of little expansions and medium-sized expansions and all kinds of stuff. So all kinds of things that kind of break the rules or something that does let you get change back in a matter of speaking if you overpay for stuff, or
Hmm.
you can rotate buildings when normally you can't. Stuff like that. That's my number 20. Alhambra. Eddie likes it. He dragged a copy of the Mega Box from Queen Games booth all the way from Essen last year. I've
Oh,
never been to Essen, but I know that that is not a short journey that you just mentioned right there. Pay extra luggage fees. No regrets. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my number 20. I'm glad it got onto the list. I think BGA has a lot to do with this list as
yeah.
well because I'm able to play a lot more games now and stuff like this that I normally have to say, physically get someone to sit down and play with me. I can just pop on and find somebody else who wants to play too. So
Yeah.
always a good thing. All right, that is my number 20. Moving on. Number 19. Let's see if I can remember what this is. And I have cheat notes here. Okay, number 19 is also new to the list
All right.
and shocking. It is a solo only game. What? You like
Hmm.
solo games? I sure do. This one in particular, and that is For Northwood,
Okay.
a
Okay.
solo trick taking game.
I like that you emphasized the exclamation point.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, it's there for a reason. Somebody took the time to put it there, so we got to respect the punctuation.
Yes.
This one got talked about a lot on the Tabletop Express this year. All three of us really, really, really like this game, and I was just kind of blown away by the simplicity of it. Yes, but the depth. There's a lot of stuff to think about and do. It's not just solitaire. It's not just a card game. It's like this battle that you have with the deck, and you're trying to just basically visit as many of these places, and then the places that are sprayed out are the amount of tricks that you're trying to take to basically win that spot. So just like when you're talking about the probability of stuff, the middle ones in a row are easier to pull off. The ones on the end are a lot harder. If you ever played any trick taking games, it's not easy to shoot the moon and take every trick, or try to avoid every single one and take none, or just take one and things like that. But beyond that, what this game does that's cool is it has these character abilities that you can use throughout your visits to these different kingdoms. You start the game with these 4 allies here, and as you visit other places, if you I forget what the verbiage is. You're not like battling. It's like a conversation you're having with these different leaders or whatever. So I guess if you win them over in conversation, they then become an available ally to you as well that you can swap out and use on a future round again one time. And
Mhm.
they do all kinds of stuff. You can discard cards, draw new cards, flip things around, break the trump suit, anything like that. Really, really simple, but so much in this little tiny box. Love the artwork too. It's very adorable and cute, and it's easy to read. The text is clear. It's not confusing. I um I had it's I know a game is good, and I know I like a game when I play it once and I'm excited to tell someone else that it exists,
Yeah.
right? And I was playing this game. My parents were at my house, and I was talking to my dad. I was like, "Come here." It's like, I know you don't really like. He'll play games, but he's not like a gamer. He doesn't go out and like, get games. I was like, you've played solitaire and like hearts and stuff. Check this out. This is a game that you play by yourself, and this is how it works, and this and this and this. And he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, thanks. It is pretty cool. Yeah, Danielle. Danielle, you're the one who first told us about this game. I feel like that might have been the way that went. Um, Dan, have you got a chance to play this one? This
I've,
might be
I've not I've not played it. I've heard multiple people talk about it, and no one talk negatively about it. And the designer I'm not familiar with. The publisher I'm not familiar with. Um,
same.
but I've seen it multiple times. Solo trick taking, everyone's like, how does that even work?
Yeah, yeah. And
But
it
no,
works
I'm very much
really well. It works really well in this design. It's not. I haven't come across anything that's like, unclear or clunky or whatever that doesn't like make sense, or you don't know how to like make the call. It's pretty straightforward.
now.
Um,
Is it a win or lose game, or is it a points game?
it's a points game, so I forget what the scale is, but at the end it's like how many of the kingdoms or fiefdoms or whatever they're called did successfully do whatever you're supposed to do there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will tell you is there have been many instances where I start to play this game, and if I lose the first visit, I don't keep playing. Why would you keep playing when there's no chance to get a perfect score? It doesn't make any sense. Um, oh, this is Danielle's picture. Okay. This pic was when I was so desperate to play that I printed it out as a print and play before I got the production copy. Yeah, I get that. I get that love, for sure. Yeah, we need a new picture, I guess.
Hmm.
All of us. Yeah. Well, it's a good one, and that's right there right now. But yeah, just something. Even though it's on BGA as well, but something about just playing with your own deck of cards and playing this little thing by yourself right in front of you is just great.
Yeah,
So
definitely one to check out.
yeah, check it out. It's on BGA, like I said. All right, folks, we are moving right along here, and it is time now for number 18 in the list. Now, number 18 is, I do not believe, new to the list. It was definitely either on last year's or the year before, or both. I kind of forget. But this is another fairly early addition to my personal collection. It's one that my wife and I have played a lot. It has been a while, but it does things that other games on this list also do, and it does them all kind of together, which I think it's why it's been on the list for a few years, but maybe it's not as high as it used to be. And that's Takenoko. So Takenoko is from Antoine Bauza, who's a designer very much like many of his games. It came out in 2011. There's been a couple versions since. There's a little expansion. There's a like mega gigantic version of this game as well. But essentially, this is a game where you're going to be doing different actions depending on what you want to do on your turn. But those things consist of either building this garden, because you're basically like the emperor's gardener, and the emperor got this panda, and the panda likes to eat bamboo, so you're constantly planting bamboo, but the panda's constantly eating the bamboo, so you replant it, and then it rains and all stuff happens. You're either adding new hexes to the board. It's a shared area. It's a garden, public garden, or you're planting some bamboo. And by the way, it has really cool components. These wooden bamboo cylinder pieces that one you have there in the picture is the green is a base, and then you stack up cylinders on top, and they just get higher. So there's green, pink, and yellow bamboo. It's a really pretty looking game. When it starts to get going and there's bamboo towers everywhere, it looks really cool. You can also irrigate because you got to connect these things to water to make them grow. You can move the panda around, and the panda will eat bamboo, so you take it off that tower and put it in your little tummy collection on your player board. Or you can move the gardener as well, who's going to add things to the bamboo. Why are you doing this is because there's different ways to score points in the game that are basically either a like physical layout of hex patterns, so like a triangle of 3 pink, or two
Okay.
yellow and a green or whatnot, or various heights of bamboo, right? So you need to have three, towers of yellow bamboo size two to get that to score that card. And then lastly, there's just bamboo cards where you eat them and then I don't know disgorge them like Cosmic Frog, perhaps. But if your panda ate the right things on the card, you get points for that too. And that's how you just keep going around doing the turn. There's also a weather die that you roll that lets you do different things too to kind of break those rules a little bit. The expansion came with little babies that are little chibis. So there's a Mrs. Panda, and then you make baby pandas, and everybody's happy. You get bonuses like that too. Very pretty looking game. Again, nice a few mechanisms together that I really do enjoy. That's why it's still on the list. Uh, Rachel says the Gardener is still one of the most expressive minis I've seen. Yes, he is very, very worried. The Gardener in this game. The rule book's great too. It's like a little sort of comic book, and yeah, he's got those sweat things coming off. He just can't keep up. Panda just keeps eating.
And you think this is one with easy easy to get and teach to people because the theme seems like kids would enjoy bamboo pandas and so on. But are the rules that light?
I wouldn't call this one light per se. It's certainly not heavy by any means. It's certainly light to middleweight.
Okay.
It's because there's so many things that you can do. Like especially when you basically start your turn by rolling the weather die, and that's going to determine what extra stuff you can do. There is a lot of options, so it could be a little overwhelming for new people. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, it's not like a crunchy game by any means. But there's optimal ways to do stuff. There's a strategy. You do have to keep an eye on, you know, what your opponent is doing. Like, why do they keep moving the gardener over there? They really want that bamboo to be a certain height, right? Well, we're gonna
Mhm.
maybe chop that down again. Um,
So the
but
scorecards are secret for each person.
you'll start with I think maybe like one of each. Like I said, there's three different kinds, and then throughout the game you'll draw new ones too. But they're all worth different points. So
Gotcha.
ones that are harder to get are going to be worth more points. And then the game end triggers when someone has scored X amount of cards,
Okay.
and then you do all your totals. So they're secret while you have them, but when you achieve them, they're face up.
Yeah.
So that part is public.
Yeah, this game's another one that when I first got into the hobby was one that was pretty well known, a sought after game, and as as I've gotten longer into it, it's always one that look back and goes, hey, I want to play that or I want to buy that eventually. And but it never comes up to mind unless someone else brings it up to me. But then I'm always like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, I do want to play that or I want to learn that on BGA or something.
yeah,
But I just haven't
yeah.
had the time yet for this one. But definitely one that looks like people were saying in chat. Table presence is great, looks great, like and it'll be nice to have on your table.
Definitely. I don't really feel like I hear a lot of people talk about this game too much, but I'm actually kind of surprised there hasn't been some other type of content put out for this game, given the trend of dual games and dice
Yeah,
game versions of other things. Chris, yeah, I always play with the Chibis expansion. They're not super complicated. Essentially, you got to get both pandas in the same hex to get a baby panda. Unfortunately, they're not little minis, which would have been cool. At least I mean, maybe someone does have those, but they're just cardboard shits. But they let you do a little extra thing. I forget what the specifics are. They're not super powerful, but sometimes it's worth getting because it'll set you up next turn for something really good as well. Yeah, there is a giant version. There's a giant version as well. Again, at that point, just go play with a real panda. That's like the next step, right? The next thing in the board game is going to be
that's the
just a
dream.
lot of the squid gaming stuff. It doesn't always have to be deadly, but just taking this and there'll probably be a reality show at some point based on a survivor type thing that's like called Catan, right? Where
Mm.
you get dropped off and there's sheep there. I guess I don't know. I really wouldn't be
You just try and
surprised.
trade sheep for stone.
You never know. You never know. All right, that's my number 18, Takenoko. It's on Bowser. That would mean that the next number, if I'm doing my math correctly still, would be 17. 17 is a game that was definitely on the list last year. I don't remember exactly what number it is, but because Ryan is so awesome, it's going to tell us on this board what it was last year. That is Sea of Clouds. Ah, okay. In
Went up.
2 years ago, it was number 18. So it's holding steady at that spot there. Sea of Clouds is a pirate themed game. By the way, this is from Yellow Games in 2016 by Theo Riviere. Probably mispronouncing that. But the pirates in this game are air pirates or whatever, sky pirates. You have these airships that you're controlling as the captain, and pretty simple concept here. You're basically going to, on your turn, pick up a card and decide if you want to take it or not. If you take it, you take it. Depending on what it is, you put it somewhere in front of you. In this game, it's either like a bottle of rum or someone for your crew or like a treasure or something like that. If you don't want it, you put it back down and then you peek at the next card and do the same thing. So as you can see on this picture here, there's always going to be kind of three cards out there. So if you decide to not take something, all of these, right, then the next time it gets passed on, like it's going to get another card on top. So the next person is going to pick up that first pile. And now there's going to be two cards there instead of one. Same deal. Do I want to take these two or not? If you would ever add a fourth card to one of these piles, you instead put a coin, a doubloon on it. So now you're adding more enticement to take those. And that's how you basically are choosing cards. Like I said, depending on what it is that you pick, that's where you're going to put this. Mostly this is like a set collection game, but they have the stages on the basically round tracker on the board that there is a battle every now and again. So on top, you've got your crew that you're amassing throughout this kind of drafting process, and they're going to have like a strength to them. Some of them might have a special ability of some kind, and then you'll basically do battle with the people on your left and right, and hopefully get some good stuff. The crew then leaves. You don't keep them, but everything else that you've had so far, you keep. And that's basically it. You're going to get like cards that score based on how many of each one you have, or some that are like a variety, have like two different kinds. You get this many points, three different kinds. This some things are cursed, so you don't want them. They're negative points, but there's a card that lets you throw it to somebody else, so they get stuck with it. There's special weapons you can use. There's a monkey who does nothing. It's just like a monkey sipping like lemonade, and it literally does nothing. He adds no strength to your crew. He has no special ability. It's just a monkey.
Just that.
So, kind of silly fun, and that's kind of why I like this game. It's it's a pirate game, but it's pretty streamlined. It's not as intense as some of the stuff like Seas of Havoc, for example, or things that we've played with similar ilk. I think that's why I like it. It's very welcoming, and that whole do I want to take this pile or not is something that you'll see in other games as well. So that's a good kind of mechanic to teach people. Have you ever given this one a try?
I've not, and from just listening to you describe it. So when you take cards, is there a limit to how many you can have in front of you? Is there a benefit not to take a whole pile of cards, or?
Well, it depends, because some of them again might be bad. So I might not want to get stuck with something. And then no, there's really no limit, because you're really not holding these cards in your hand. You're basically playing them as soon as you get them. So your player board just has a spot for your crew over here, your relics over here, your rum over here, and there's even some things that are kept secret that you keep face down. Everything else is public knowledge, so you can see who's trying to collect, the Kraken skull, or the the cursed rum or whatnot.
Okay, I see. Because I guess like one of these cards says if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, your points go up for how many types of that card you have. Okay,
Exactly that kind of stuff. Yeah, sorry, I took all these pictures and sent them to Ryan and forgot to change their orientation. So we're doing a lot of this tonight.
Yeah, taco
Make sure
next.
you alternate. Uh, Chris commenting, yeah, I think I convinced, not by doing much, just by showing him Chris to buy this game. I think he has this one as well. He says, I like the fact that you need to consider building up a crew while collecting cards for points. Yeah, you can't sleep on the crew cards, because come battle time, you're going to be losing big time.
A
Yes, totally not your fault.
small box.
Hmm.
I think you should
Yeah,
bring this
it's like
to
a let's see,
PAX
I
next
see it
year.
in the back over there, like Sobek, Draftosaurus,
Okay.
Watergate, that size box.
Bring it to PAX next year. We'll get a
Oh,
game.
absolutely, absolutely, will do. Awesome. Cracking Skulls. That's right, Chris. I got that mentioned. I got you guys covered. I got Cosmic Frog in there. I got the Eagles in there. I got Cracking Skulls in there. I got you guys. I got you guys. Oh, Rachel bought this too. Man, yeah, look at that. I got to get me some affiliate links. That's what I do. Affiliate links up in here. All right, moving on. Number 16 is not is technically not new to the list. This version that I'm going to show is new to the list, but the family of games is not, and that'll make a lot of sense right now when I show you that it's Pandemic. So this is technically new to the list. This from Matt Leacock came out in 2008. So Pandemic is the game that got me into the hobby, right? That got me into the new modern board gaming scene, as it were. My buddy Eric, who many of you have seen on Board Game Dad's videos, he's been on this channel as well. He's the one who taught me that game, showed it to me, and I was absolutely blown away by the mere concept of us playing together
Hmm.
against the game. It was like such a bizarre thing to wrap your head around. And I just, you can like remember like certain smells and things like that. Like if I concentrate, I can feel the way I felt when I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Told myself I was going to buy it like the next day. I didn't for one reason or another. I don't remember why. Fast forward, my first actual purchase was Flashpoint Fire Rescue, which is a very similar concept, again, co op. But man, the Pandemic family is just, completely out of this world, rich with versions and theme and stuff. I've lost count at this point. I think last year I had Pandemic Legacy Season 1 on my list. Obviously, couldn't show many pictures for that, but that was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
But really, just this base game, even if you only have the base game, it's such a great design. It's
Yeah.
so smooth. It's fun. Again, there's always a caveat. It's cooperative, so it depends on who you're playing with. You do have to watch out for, people taking over your turn or telling you what to do or whatnot. But this whole cooperative element is just such a cool thing. And even after all these years, I'm still, reeling over how just revolutionary that idea is in general.
Yeah. And I don't think anything's for me has taken its spot of if I have a completely new person to gaming and I want to pick a cooperative game, it's going to be this every time.
Hmm.
And like you said, I can remember when I played it. I can remember like me and my one friend would play this. We played it single handed, then we played it double handed, and we played it multiple times and just couldn't crack it. And then we brought a third friend in, and the first time he plays it, we beat the game. So we're standing up, high fiving each other, and he goes, "What's the big deal?" Like, I'm like, "All right, get out of here, guy."
You're the hero. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I love the fact that you can play this game and you can get totally obliterated in a matter of minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or you can have this epic, drawn out, last minute victory and all kinds of stuff in between.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, what's the board here?
okay, so these
On
are
price.
full disclosure. These are Ryan's pictures. I actually don't own Base Pandemic.
Okay.
This is Ryan's picture of the sorry, the on the brink or in the lab. I
Oh
forget which
yeah,
one
yeah.
he said.
Okay.
It was one of those two. That's on here, and I've actually not played either one of those. But
In the lab board, he said. Yeah.
in the lab. Yeah, there. I thought that's what it was with the little petri dish kind of thing here. Um, Iberia is one that gets a lot of praise. I know there was like a Cthulhu type of one. There's a like a Fall of Rome type of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars version, World of Warcraft, I believe. And like you said with the legacies, I have Legacy 1 and 2 just sitting on my shelf waiting to play because you hear everyone talk about how that is just a phenomenal experience.
it's a lot
And
of
like,
fun.
yeah,
If you can get the group and you can get it to the table regularly, that's really the key.
yeah,
Because the longer that goes, more time that goes by between plays, the harder it is to get back into it. And that problem gets progressively worse because the game gets more complicated, the legacy
yeah,
version. Like as you go along, there was adding things or, changing the way a rule works. And it's just like, it's a lot of references. Um, and they do a good job of, keeping the rule book kind of organized. But yeah, it certainly is you know, learn it and try to learn it and try to play it again relatively soon after that.
and just
Yeah, a lot of praise for Iberia.
the many different ways you can lose the game. You're just like, well, we got to worry about this, but then this is going to happen in 5 turns, but we got to worry about that, and you're just like, it's a sweat the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, all right, if this card comes out, we're screwed.
Yeah, we're done.
If this card goes out, we're good. And then you get to a point where sometimes you're shuffling like 3 cards, and it's like, well, something bad's happening. Like, just how bad is it going to be? So yeah, a lot of replayability with this for sure. And again, my story of this being my intro game or whatever you want to call it, I know is one that is true for a lot of other folks. Just that I've heard through conversations with other people about how they got into it as well. So that is Pandemic, new to the list at number 16. Number 15, I don't think is new to the list. It may have been a little higher last year. We'll see in a second. But very similar in ilk to Alhambra in that it is a classic tile laying game that the base version of is quite simple, and then you can complicate the hell out of it by adding the gazillion, trillion, billion different expansions that exist and that keep coming out. That's Carcassonne. There we go. Yeah, number 19 last year. Okay, it was lower last. All right, so it went up a little bit. Yeah, this one is a really a modern classic at this point. Another
Absolutely.
one that is some people's, what was the game that got you in kind of a deal, and with good reason. There's quite a quite a novel idea in that you start playing this game and there's nothing on the table. You have a pile of these little people, these little wooden things that you teach people are called meeples, and then there's one tile out, and you're like, well, how do we do? Well, you build the board basically. That's
Yeah.
that's the nature of the game. The game progresses as you grow it, and if you've never ever, if you're listening to this, you've never played this game, go play the game. I'm not going to teach you the game right now, but essentially, you put out a tile, you got to match it up to road or grass or a town or city, whatever. And then if you want, you put a meeple on it. They're going to score points in different ways.
Get those points.
Get those points.
Yeah.
You have a very set number of those meeples though, so you don't want to wear yourself too thin. You can also be in competition over some spaces, right? Especially when you get to the whole farming thing, which a lot of people seem to try to avoid. I think it is the most confusing part of the game. This is another one that my friend Eric taught me, introduced me to, and very much the opposite of the pandemic story. This left a kind of a bad taste in my mouth the first time I played it, and then we played it again, and it didn't get any better because Eric was falling down this rabbit hole as well. And on his way down, he was grabbing all these expansions. And so every time I hung out with him, he had a new expansion. And I was like, dude, I don't even get the farmer thing yet. And now you're telling me about these cathedrals and this garden that does this. And there's this,
This
robber.
catapult.
Once you get the hang of it, boy, is it a fun one. It's quick,
Yeah.
especially if you're playing with people who know how to play. You put your tile down, you put a meeple on or not, and then you pick up another tile. You're looking at it, ready for your next turn, and just saying, "Where am I going to put this thing?" But that being said, there is certainly some strategy to it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and just like I said with Pandemic, this is another one of new gamer. This is one of the first games I'm putting in front of you. And like
Yeah,
you said, I think all the base versions come now with the river expansion already in it, and I'll do the farmers just to start, just because it does help with. I think it helps more with the strategy of, well, if I put this here, I'm going to connect the two fields, and
yep,
I like having that in the first game as well, because I don't think it's not anything that a new gamer can't handle. But yeah, this Pandemic, obviously, Ticket to Ride. These are like Catan. These are the four that I'll put in front of people and just start to play. And
yeah,
for this one, the app is just phenomenal. Well, I don't know if they still have the app, but any digital version is phenomenal, because it will does all the scoring for you first of all, and will let you know where you can and can't put things. So you're not going to run into that situation like 5 turns later. It's like, oh, we are both on the same field. I
yeah.
shouldn't have put it there, or I couldn't have put it there.
Right, right,
But
right.
this game is phenomenal. I think I've only ever done Traders and Builders, maybe in Inns and Cathedrals, but beyond that, I haven't. I don't think I've even looked at the rules of what the other ones can do. I've heard the
Yeah.
two-player one very well, or a good one. The Castle, I believe it's called.
Yes, that's a lot of people's favorite version
Yeah.
as well, which Squirrel actually brought up here. Uh,
Oh,
co-designed by Ryan Pizia is his
yeah.
favorite without a doubt. Rachel adding that Carcassonne was indeed her gateway game. Chris loves the circus expansion and cannot explain why. Well, nobody, you don't need to prove it to anybody. You can like
And
whatever you
clowns.
like. Um, yes, Rachel, I've heard Mists over Carcassonne is a lot of fun. This is a cooperative version of the game that has a little eerie sort of, I guess, foggy thing that's sort of taking over the land or something to that effect. Um, but yeah, real quick, going back to the digital version of this, I don't know which one. There's several, but the one thing that I do like about that too, when it comes to the farms, is it'll kind of you can toggle. It'll kind of tell you, who owns this farm.
Yeah,
And
and
if it's
everything in the
two
cover.
players, you'll see like two colors in it. It becomes very much
Yep.
more obvious because otherwise, and again, the bigger it gets, you're kind of like, let's see, it goes around here. And then there's like a few tiles that are like, is this like go through here, or is this technically someone like that, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, just the base game, even you'd be fine with it. I guarantee you're probably gonna fall in love with it and start buying other stuff. So that is Carcassonne. No surprise here, and again, still on the list from last year, up 4 spots, as a matter of fact. All right, moving on. Number 14
Right.
is indeed a new game to the list. And this was one that Chris, Ryan, and I tried to play on several occasions a few years back, and it just never happened. And it was this sort of joke that it was this cursed game, and we finally did get to play it. I think it was in 2024, maybe before that. But it was a huge hit in my eyes, and we've played it several times since then. Yes, Ryan knows the cursed game. It was 2020. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. That was quite a while ago now. But I should tell you the game. It's a Rear Window from Prospero Hall and Funko Games. This is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the Mysterium killer for me. It is a deduction game where one person plays as the director of the movie. And if you've never seen Rear Window, you should watch it. So I've been told. Yeah, I've still never seen it yet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know. I know. I've seen the Simpsons episode. I get it. I get it. Um, but it does what Mysterium didn't do in the fact that despite it being quite simple in terms of the images that you're looking at and referencing when you're trying to make your deductions, Mysterium started to sound very samey after a while, where you were there were just not enough cards and you were always kind of referencing the same things. And the images were so like almost too mixed up, like more like Dixit style, but not like weird crazy stuff. Just a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it became hard to kind of give these sort of focused clues on specific elements. So you'd end up just saying things about like colors or like the shape of something or things like that. Whereas in this game, you've got really just pictures of an apartment. Sometimes there's a person in it, sometimes there's not. There's like maybe 6 7 things in the picture that you're looking at, but they all make sense together. There's a broken lamp and like or the shadow of two people yelling at each other, or a glass of wine and then a picture of someone on the wall, whatever. I digress. The point of this is, as a director, the correct attributes. You know the 4 people who are in the building and the 4 characteristics that they have. The baker, the candlestick maker, whatever. You are playing these cards out onto the building spaces, trying to get your audience or other players to guess who lives there and what their attribute is. They do all the talking, they put stuff down, they make their guess, and then you then tell them how many of the 8 spots they have correct. You don't know which ones are correct, you just know how many are correct. So you get that number, and now you go on to round 2. And now again, the director has to use a new set of cards and try to get more clues out. Now, they don't want to rock the boat too much because they don't want their fellow players to change any of the guesses that they have that are correct, which of course they don't know about. So at the same time, you can kind of play a couple of cards face down if you want, trying to, get that point across that, hey, don't worry about this. There's nothing to see here. But you can't say those things. Obviously, there's no talking. One of the things that sometimes is a struggle for these types of games is the downtime. As the odd person out, the director, right, GM, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times you're just kind of like, I can't say anything. All I can do is listen to these people deliberate and point to stuff and change your mind over and over again. But because you have just a set number of cards, you've got a lot to look at while they're guessing stuff. Like, you can definitely plan for the next round and not feel like you're just like dying to do something next. And it takes your mind off of sometimes, grinding your teeth when they're talking themselves out of something that is correct. So just that tension, add to the fact that there may or may not be a murder in the game. And if there is, that changes the win conditions for the director a little bit as well. That, and then you can add on these other crazy like relationship things where 2 people in the building are, in a fight, or ex-lovers or whatever it is. And that's some extra layer of something else you're trying to find out as well. Lots of clamor from the chat about me having to watch the movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Rachel said watch the 1954 version. That's the original version. I would definitely watch that one. Takeaway from this video is now officially watch Rear Window. Yes, write it down. Got it.
I've never seen it either, so we can have a viewing party.
There you go. How about that? We'll watch it, PAX Unplugged next year. We'll set up a screen in the lobby.
You get a projector.
Stream Rear Window and play it at the same time.
Yeah, I remember watching you guys do a play of this one on the channel, and I pretty much right away went and got a copy. And to be honest, I think this might have been one of my first Barnes and Noble's clearance finds. I think I might have got it for like $6-7. But you guys play this and you're like Mysterium Killer, and I'm like, all right, I'm in right away because I want to check it out. And even though I've never seen Rear Window, I think there was a modernized version that was done called Disturbia, maybe, or something like that, with Shia LaBeouf.
I'm sure Ryan knows.
I think it was something like that, but so it's like, he's in his house, can't leave, looking out his windows and everything. So yeah. I've essentially seen Rear Window if I've seen the Shia LaBeouf version.
Yeah, there you go. It's just like, I've never seen A Wonderful Life either, but I know what it's about.
I've never seen that either.
Oh, it is Disturbia. Yeah, you're right. And
okay.
Makes Ryan's skin crawl, apparently. But yeah, great one. I've had the chance now to play as both the director and a player.
Which did you prefer?
I don't know. I like them both.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it both times. It's a good challenge. I really like it.
Can a new player be a director first, or would you recommend?
I I mean, technically, sure. I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
I think that's why Ryan did it. Uh, I want to say probably like the first 3 or 4 times. I only played as a director, I think, recently, the last time we played the game. Every time Anthony reveals a new game, a meeple gets its wings. There you go. Poor angels. Anyway, that's my that's my number.
And,
What are we on? 14? Yeah, Rear Window.
yeah,
Close
definitely
this
want to
bad
play this
boy.
one soon.
All right, we are getting close to being halfway there. How about that? Number 13, not a lucky number for the folks that you are sort of playing as in this game for sure. And this is one that was on the list last year as well. That is The Downfall of Pompeii. This one came out in 2004, published out by Amigo. And Klaus Jorgen Red is the designer of this. It was my number 10 last year, so it did fall a wee bit. This one is super duper mean. You are going to be throwing people into that volcano, and of course, making that any kind of sound that you want. Really, you could also put one of those tea light candles in that thing, and it's kind of like glows from the outside. But anyway, kind of a drab looking board at first, but then you get the volcano, so it's all good. You're basically going to be playing cards that match the colors of these different buildings, and that's how you're going to be adding your people, which are those little cylinder hex type of shapes. Although you can replace them with meeples pretty easily. And as you can see, there's certain the buildings only have a certain amount of spaces that can hold people as they go there. So you play this game in kind of like 2 parts. The first part is that playing those cards out and getting your folks positioned somewhere on the board in Pompeii. And then at some point in the game, you're going to draw a card that's going to be, Vesuvius starts to kind of rumble, and now things are going to get kind of messy because what's happening is now as you're drawing these cards, you're also going to be adding these lava tiles to the board, covering up certain spots, and it's just going to keep spreading. So you're now trying to get as many as your folks out of Pompeii as you can, and there's different exits around the board, but lava is flowing everywhere, so some of them are going to get closed off at some point. But the cool thing about the way the second part of the game works is the number of spaces you can move depends on how many players, how many pieces are in that space, regardless of who they belong to. So, like, if there's 4 in there, you're going to move that one 4 spots.
Mm-hmm.
You can move, I think, 2 different people or maybe the same person twice, and things like that. And then again, so you're sort of, it's like this, I don't know, maybe like reverse Mancala sort of thing where you want to try to get them, ideally finishing in a spot that's A, not next to lava because that's going to spread, and B, maybe puts you in a spot that you have other pieces in so that on the next turn, any of those pieces get a lot of spaces to move as well, as opposed to just kind of like one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you draw that omen card, you are going to pick up any of your opponent's pieces right off the board and just drop them into the volcano. They're done. They're out of the game. Game ends, and you count how many survivors you have, basically. That's the game. Again, super mean, but very fun and gets really, really hectic. It's kind of a B word to set up, and that's funny because there's not a lot to the game, but the way you have to construct a deck is super annoying. You can take a certain amount of cards out, make equal piles, and then put the omen card in, shuffle that, and then add the piles, and then blah blah blah, and then you take like 2 piles out of the game. It takes longer to set up the deck of cards than it does to like do the first act.
Right.
To be honest, but it's totally worth it. And one that I don't know that I've actually ever looked to see if there's any digital implementations of this, because that would solve that headache a lot about that. Brian says this hits the discount sometimes. Yes, Dan Yes, I assume Dan has a $2 version. You're probably right.
I've it only in the two lists where you put this in your top 10 list. I've never heard of this game outside of that, and I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
think
know that this game is still in print.
I was gonna say I don't think I've ever seen it in like a marketplace or anything secondhand, or it's on Yukata.
Okay, it's on Yukata. Yeah. That's I forgot about Yukata. That's another place for some digital versions. Not as fancy schmancy as BGA, but they do have some stuff that BGA does not have.
Yeah,
Yeah, Downfall Pompeii. Really, really good table presence and a lot of fun. And you get to make that sound when you drop it. And sometimes you draw two or maybe even three cards in a row, and it's just like, oh my god, come on! It's so disheartening. People just get drop, and then at the end you get to lift it up and see how many people died of yours versus your opponents. It's good, all good fun. Downfall of Pompeii, my number 13. Moving on, number 12 is a game that I think is new to my list, although if it wasn't in the top 20 before, it's always kind of hovered around that top, 50 easily
sure.
mark. And this is one that has been talked about quite a bit on our channel as well, because it is someone's really, really, really kind of favorite game, and that is Targi.
Oh yeah.
All right, we've talked about this a lot. 2-player only, moving around this grid and placing your tokens on the perimeter to sort of take the action of whatever's on that intersection. Again, looks dry at first. It is very brown. And you're collecting things like salt, pepper, all kinds of fabulous looking things.
And they're dates, not beans.
Dates, correct.
I would say beans, but they're dates.
Different game. But boy, again, talk about remembering things. The first time I played this game, I was like, oh, okay. Because I had heard about it before and how good it is, and you got to play Targi. And when it got taught to me, I was like, okay, now I see. Very, very, very tight, intense game. You are really going to get mad a few times because, again, there's only 2 players, and there's only so many spots you can go to, and resources will really make or break you in this game. You really got to manage them well. You're basically going to use them to buy, buy other cards that are going to be then built into your tableau that have. Don't ask me about the names. There's desert, all kinds of desert people and trees and stuff like that. You're trying to get like a bunch in a row to get the most points. Excuse me, but man, that sort of crosshair thing of where you're going to put your piece to then put your other piece to get that thing. And then sometimes a card lets you, move your thing at the intersection to something else. It is a very, very tight, tense experience. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just every turn is like, ugh.
Yeah, and being able to place your workers on the outside to block where the other person can go in conjunction with. I know it's not called the robber, is it? But the gray piece travels around.
Yeah, I think it's a robber or thief.
Is it a robber?
I think so.
Or a trader or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, the way you can use that to block when someone's trying to get to a certain card, or you go to that one card, the Fata Morgana, so they can't pick up their piece and put it somewhere, and you're like, it gives you some satisfaction. And
yeah, it is. It's got the chess-like. I see you. I see what you're doing, and I'm not going to let it happen. Or you might think you know what I'm doing, but I'm not actually doing that. So go ahead and do that thing you think that because it's not going to be the thing. I love that meta back and forth. So yeah, it's a mean one for sure.
Yeah, and if a game on BGA ever needed a confirm button, it would be this one, because how many times have I got a new card but didn't play the card from my hand, and now I have to trash that one, and I'm just like, oh my lord. I think me and Barrows, whenever we play, at one point one of us will complain, we need a confirm button or an undo button, one or the other. It's one of those.
I can't believe there is it's I feel like it's even on the like beta versions of games have it almost automatically.
Nah, get good.
Yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, you're right. I just trying to cover up my how bad I am at this game.
All right, that is Targi. I'm not going to belabor it anymore because it's been talked about a whole bunch. Just ask Chris about it. He'll talk your ear off about it.
He loves it.
But that's my number 12, which means number 11 is next. Number 11 is a game that also has a lot of sand. It was on the list last year. I don't recall what number, but it is from designer Josh Wood, who also designed Let's Go to Japan. Santa Monica. Ooh, number 6 last year. So
Oh,
falling a few spots. I am going to venture to say that probably the main reason that's the fact that happened is I probably haven't played this game since then. It just hasn't gotten out, but that doesn't mean
but it
it's not
says something
good.
that's still on the list.
Exactly, exactly. Um, a tableau building game where you start with this, kind of landmark. It might be a hotel or a bake shop or whatever, and then you're building out left and right from that center spot. Where the cards on the top row are going to be the oceanfront cards with the water, and then the cards on the bottom row are basically the boardwalk um, cards. A little heavy on the iconography. Definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. But once you do, obviously it kind of sings. What you're trying to do is essentially get points by filling in the certain, activity rings that are in certain areas, getting people to visit certain spots. There's like a VIP person that wants to do certain things. There's tourists that can do certain things. There's some spots that multiple different types of people can go to. Um, but it does have this sort of gotta hurry up and get my people somewhere because you will get dinged on points if the game ends and people are kind of stranded without doing something. But the other thing that's cool is you draft in this game and you there's four choices of cards, and there's also the food truck, a little food truck thing, and a foodie person. And if you choose the cards that are in front of them, you're going to do other stuff. One of them, I think, lets you take from like the back row instead of the front row, and one, I believe, lets you move a certain amount of people in your tableau. But this just the artwork on here really, really well done, and just kind of definitely evokes that seaside kind of a feel to it. When
Mm.
you're all done, looking at your tableau with the nice ocean there, the boardwalk, it's really cool. A lot of fun kind of punny names on some stuff on some of the stores and things like that. A lot of little detail. See a shark in some of the water, or whatever, little sand castles and things like that. But very, very nice production on this. Components are great. You get different scoring conditions for each game, so there's replayability there as well. There is an expansion that adds some more stuff. I think it's called the Long Weekend, which I think added more like double-sized cards for you to deal with as well. And yeah, if you can string together some good points in this, if you can look at those icons and see what those objectives are, you can pull off some really neat stuff in this one. And I was, again, excited when Let's Go to Japan came out because it was the same designer, and I do really enjoy that game a lot as well. I like this one better, obviously, but got a good thing going there with the location based themes.
Yeah, and I've only just recently started playing Let's Go to Japan, and as soon as you said it, I looking at the cards, I'm like, oh, I can definitely see the similarities, even in kind of just like the font or like layouts.
Yeah,
It looks like that, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah. Like I said,
I,
it could be a little hard to grok some of the conditions, some of what the icons mean, because you're trying to get like loops of stuff, and everything's got like a different icon, like if it's for a restaurant or if it's a hobby shop or it's a outdoor activity, things like that. Um, but yeah, beautiful looking game, nice sand dollar pieces in there as well. So yeah, Santa Monica. If you're looking for that, there's no shortage of ocean, seasidey beach kind of games these days. So I'm hoping this one doesn't get pushed aside with the new stuff that's coming out. I feel like this could be right for maybe a new expansion soon. I might put the juice back in the beach. They just are redoing the Wildwood Boardwalk recently, so
oh, really?
yeah. Get a little some new boards in there. Anyway, that is my number. What did I say? 11. Number
Yes,
11, Santa Monica. All right, whew.
cracked it.
Crack the halfway mark. It's all downhill from here,
Hydrate.
literally, because now I can hit this fun button up here in the corner and do the whoop or whoop. Actually, it probably makes more sense to keep
Oh,
it this way.
you're flipping it.
Yeah, isn't that cool? All right, on to the number 10 game here. We are back into new game territory. So,
I like
new
it.
to the list.
I
So,
like it.
not only new to my list, this game just came out in 2024. So, it just came out and rocked its way to the halfway 10 mark on my list. And that is Fromage.
Ooh.
Boy, oh boy, did I fall head over heels for this cheesy wheel of a game. Fantastic production, fantastic gameplay, unique decisions, and a spinning lazy Susan board. What more could you possibly ask for? Oh, wait, it's about cheese. Oh my goodness, so many boxes got checked off from this. Just like I was telling about how I like to tell someone about a game after I play it, and there's another game coming up later that is exactly why that game is on here, and that's why this one is on here. Play this, couldn't wait to play it again, couldn't wait to show it to people, couldn't wait to spin it around. I've been playing it a lot on BGA as well, and yeah, I am loving this. Four sections of this board. You're only dealing with the one that's in front of you. You have three workers, and you're making cheese. The workers, though, depending on how you put them, so there's different ages of cheeses, which depends on which direction you put your worker. They're triangles. You put your worker on, and depending on where you put that worker, determines how many turns till you get the worker back. Meaning, if your section is in front of you and you play a worker who is facing right, okay, as soon as that wheel turns, now that person who is facing right is facing you. So you're going to get it right back. But if you had it facing the other way, it's going to take two turns. The other way, three turns. So as you can imagine, those spaces are more lucrative, right? You want to get three cows? Well, you can, but you're not going to get this guy back for a while. Every version, every quarter of the board is a different mini game, kind of. You're either trying to do sort of an area control thing on one section. You're trying to make essentially sets in another section. Another section is sort of a how many adjacent spaces can you get? Just like how many things can you fill up? And then you've got these other shelves that you're just putting stuff on to get different things. And it's just there's so much to explore in this, and I can't wait to just keep playing it. And there's already going to be a new Kickstarter standalone expansion coming out soon, called Formaggio. So we're going to Italy then next. Did you play this at PAX?
I did not. This was one that you guys played, and like you said, you guys were talking about it a lot, and it did pique my interest. And when I saw it was on BGA, I'm like, okay, now I'll be able to get into it. But I haven't yet. But I mean, worker placements, a lazy Susan, and cheese, like you said, I'm in.
Right? What else can you ask for?
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing because obviously you're looking at what your opponents are doing. You're allowed to look. It's nothing secret really in this game. There's no hidden information, but you can look all you want. You're not going to be able to do anything about it until it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And for all the spaces and things that you can do in this game, you only get as many turns as wedges of cheese you have. So when the board is facing you, there's the main area that I just talked about, but then there's also at the very top, the square part of the middle of the lazy Susan is another place where you can put your workers. That's how you gather resources. It's either fruit, order cards, cows, or structures. Those you need to put a worker there, but it doesn't cost you cheese, so you're not losing turns that way. But anything else, you put things on in front of you, that's where your cheese is going. You run out of cheese, that's it. Game's over like right then and there. So you can easily get lost in your own sort of cheesy world, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, game's over. Ah, crap, right? And so it's tight. Um, yes, thank you, Arwen, and we still have your cheese stickers from the badges as well that are in the box. Uh, yeah, because making the top 10 is pretty impressive. It plays so quick. My only complaint is the retail edition clipboard components are so daggone tiny. Yeah, I did get kind of spoiled, and I did get do have the Kickstarter version of this. Thanks to this guy, I am definitely going to be backing Formaggio. I don't see why I wouldn't. Right now, again, this is so fresh and so on top of my mind that if you come out with new stuff for this, I'm just going to want to look at it automatically. It is a standalone expansion, so I don't know exactly how much is going to get integrated or whatnot. But yeah, I can talk about how much I love cheese and this game about cheese for the whole evening, but people have work tomorrow, so I'm not going to belabor it anymore. Except just go play it. So good, so good. If you're on BGA and you want to learn how to play, invite me to a game, and I will play with you. Um, other thing I wanted to add: if you play base game, just have the same like four structures you can build, but there's a variant where you can draft new structures to add to your thing, and they do all kinds of different stuff. So again, all kinds of ways to break the rule of how you put someone down, or add the value of one thing or another. Lots of things to explore in this one. Looking forward to much more cheese. That is my number 10, new to the list, Fromage. I think it'll be hanging around for a while.
Very cool.
Which means we're on to number 9. And number 9 is no stranger to the list. And if you've watched me talk about any games before, you've probably heard me talk about this one as well. That is Survive! Escape from Atlantis. I fell a couple spots from last year, but no big deal. Nothing to be alarmed about, as opposed to, say, all these guys, the sea creatures that are out to get you, amongst other things in this game. Boy, oh boy, is this one mean. Super duper cutthroat. But you know what? Everyone's going to go in the water, so if you can't take it, don't dish it out, vice versa, whatever the quote may be. In Survive, the island is sinking. You've got a bunch of people that you're trying to get off the island onto these boats and sail to safety to one of the corners of the board. So on your turn, you're going to pick up one of these tiles to start to sink the island. And guess what? If that tile had a meeple on it, that meeple's in the ocean now. And you know what else is in the ocean? Sea monsters, sharks, giant squid, whales, some boats, some dolphins, which are good, and probably some other people. There's just so much chaos in this game, and anything can happen. You can have 3 people in a boat, possibly from multiple players. It could get tipped over by a whale. You could get eaten by a giant squid. You could fall in the water and then have a shark chasing you. But if you have a dolphin, he can kind of protect you for a little bit, all while trying to just get your meeples off the island. The caveat here too is that in the beginning of the game, you're taking turns, sort of draft-like, placing your meeples in starting spots on the island, but they'll have a point value underneath. So some of them are worth more than others. Good luck remembering which one you put where. As much as you think you're going to, you're not. So by the end of the game, you may have only rescued 2 of your people, but you know what? If you got your 6 and your 5, you got 11 points. You're looking pretty good. You never know what other people are going to get. So many memorable, oh my God, moments in this. I've heard of some people who, their relationships have never been the same after playing this game, which, take that for what it is. But this one is certainly not going anywhere out of my collection anytime soon. And that is even barring the fact that there's a new reprint version of this game that I know Chris has. I took a look at it the other night. I haven't actually played it yet. I don't know if the gameplay is super different. I doubt it's that different. Possibly a little more streamlined. So base game of this, and then you've got these other expansions that add these extra creatures and sort of make it a little confusing about some of the stuff to do with the tiles when you flip them over. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, just remember, if this is this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Because you flip it over, and if it's something red, you can keep it for later. If it's green, you're supposed to just play it right away. And a lot of times, those things that you keep are like anti-shark, repellent, or like an extra boat or something like that.
Bat shark spray.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just punch him in the nose. But yeah, all kinds of sound effects going on in this one, and the screaming for your life, and it's just really, really good stuff. New version is on BGA. All right, let's check that out. Set up a game for that. Chris, yeah, I agree. So many great, memorable moments for me.
I have not played this one. My monthly gaming group does own this one, so I think I might have to grab it off soon and put it on there. And I love seeing that a Parker Brothers game is in the top 20. That's just some nostalgia right there.
And this game, I think, what year did this come out? Oh, yeah, has it there? Oh, yeah, 82. Yeah, this is a pretty old game at this point. So it's good that they made a new version. But yeah, that's a Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Lots of cool stuff going on in that one. Now, for number 8, we are going to be staying in the water, which I did not do on purpose. This one is not going to be a surprise that it's on the list, but I guess it could be a little surprising that it dropped quite a bit, 4 spots. That's Fleet the Dice Game. This is from the designer duo of Ben Pinchbeck and Matt Riddle, who have done lots of these other, sort of mega-sized roll and write things like French Quarter, Motor City, Fleet the Dice Game, and Three Sisters, to name a few.
First one?
This is, the combinations that you can pull off in this game are very, very satisfying. And it almost seems like you're never going to do the same thing each time. Almost. You play a bunch of times, you obviously are going to get a certain strategy that you are a fan of or not. But these 2, decent sized pieces of paper for what you traditionally know as a roll and write for me at the time was, again, something very, very unique and different, that it was this giant, sprawling kind of thing with all these little things you can mark off. You're rolling some dice in a cool light tower dice tower, if you did that version, which I think I did. Obviously, that's my picture. Anyway, you take turn drafting dice. That's either going to be a type of fish that you'll be filling in going down a track, so lobster, cod, swordfish, etc. Or you're going to be building some buildings in the wharf, like a bait shop, a canning company, all kinds of other stuff. And then you can also do things in the harbor, like try to build a really big boat, build some smaller boats, some barge, and then you can even do some captain stuff there if you want. It's a very solitaire thing, okay? There's not really a lot of interaction going on. You're kind of talking to yourself as you're writing things out, especially when you get to those combos, like, okay, this gives me 2 coins. I'll mark that off. Okay, get one of those, free action, or I'm going to do that here, which gets me this, and every time I fish, I do this, and there's a lot of that going on. But man, that's what I love about it, right? It's so satisfying. You really feel like you are in control of this whole area. Love the app as well. It only plays solo, which is fine. Do wish there was a passive play, but I get it because it is very much a solo feel to it. I am not very good at the game, though, despite how much I love it and played a lot. I very, very often lose, most of the time to my wife, to the point where some of our friends don't even want to play this game with her anymore because she's too good at it. Fleet the Dice Game, still my favorite of those 4 that I mentioned, with Three Sisters probably coming in a close second, and then French Quarter and Motor City after that.
And this was the first one they did of those 4, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And again, this is a dice version of another game, an older game just called Fleet, which I've never played, actually. But yeah, they had a little expansion to this called Dicey Waters, which added a few more buildings that you can play around with, which I appreciate. Doesn't, if you're familiar with the game, it's not anything that you can't handle. But is this an intro roll and write game? Absolutely not.
Mhm. Yeah, this is one of the ones I've been looking for just because of the recommendation from you. And every time I'm looking and I'm like looking at like a Facebook Marketplace, I'm say, "Oh, Fleet," and it's like, "Oh, not the dice version."
Yeah. Oh man, that's a shame. Yeah, you'll get it. You'll get there. You get there. But yeah, very happy about that this exists, and again was a reason why I then backed those other games. I just really like the way that these two guys put their heads together on this stuff for sure. That's the heavy roll and write Fleet the Dice game. Well, certainly not the heaviest though, with some of the stuff that's out there. All right, folks, moving on. Number 7 is a game I think I mentioned earlier in the stream. It is another pretty old game at this point, and another one that my buddy Eric was the one who taught me, and I liked it after first play. I didn't love it, but I liked it enough that I did want to play it again sooner rather than later. And now, lo and behold, it's one of my favorite games, and that is the Castles of Burgundy. So to get one Stefan Feld on the list here, Castles of Burgundy is a classic Euro type game. You're going to be building out your kingdom here with these cool little hex tiles, and depending on which board you use, sometimes everyone has the same layout, sometimes it's different. Now these are a couple of the this is the like anniversary newer version. I do not have that. I have the crummy old one here on top. But basically, you're going to be just rolling 2 dice and using them to take various actions. Those actions might be taking a tile from the central market area, or placing it from your storage into your actual player board. You might be selling some goods with those dice, or you could take some extra workers, and the workers let you alter the dice value. So there's some dice manipulation. You can also buy extra special tiles that are not just going to be out in any of those fancy, those ports going to be that fancy part in the middle because they're extra special. Lots of, this is the point salad thing that you sort of learn about when you first get into the hobby. And then you learn that it's kind of a thing amongst this type of, genre of games and this designer, I guess you would say as well. But it is a very, it's just like sleek. I don't know how it's like an elegant play. It's not clunky. You get a little bit of AP, sure, but again, you only have 2 dice on your turn. There's only so much you can do, and as the round goes on, there's going to be even less choices, really, because stuff's going to be taken off the board. But you're really just trying to fill in your board and filling up the same type of area. Like if you have an area that's just all water, try to get that whole thing filled up. You get points for that. You get points for being the first person to get all of one type filled in on your board. You're going to get points for how many of a certain building you have, because there's these other yellow things that let you do extra stuff and get more points for certain buildings. And this one lets you take 4 workers or whatever. This one gives you a coin, and it's all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of referencing at that point about what does this tile do again. Play the game enough, you're going to know what they do. So again, is it user beginner friendly? No, not really. But if you have the right teacher, it's really not that hard. Now, that being said, you're not going to be good at this game the first few times you play it, for sure. And then even when you think you are, you play a game against Squirrel and you get the thing. And but man, this is still a lot of fun. There are a fair amount of expansions to this game as well, though I've actually never played with any of them. I think I have a few extra boards, maps or whatever, but nothing past that. Frankly, I just don't think it needs anything else. That's how much I like it at the base level. Yes, that statement does go. A lot of games with Squirrel, he's just too darn good. Oh, that Squirrel.
Yeah, this game is phenomenal. It's probably a top 5 for me as well. I have that the same version you have, the old brown one with the old man on the cover or whatever.
Yep.
But I've never played it in person. I've only played on BGA, so I've never had to do the setup. I probably wouldn't know how to set it up and into a new round without it. But like you said, just it you know what you roll, so you can plan what you're going to be doing.
Yeah,
Um, and getting the combo of either uh, being able to place like four tiles in one turn or well, maybe not, I don't think you need four, but maybe three in one turn, or the right thing coming up that you can get without having to use a worker, or being able to snag the mine before someone else does it, so you close
yeah,
your first and get that first bonus instead of the second place bonus. It's so satisfying. I never get bored of it. I've never played with any of the expansions, and I would like to. I don't feel I would ever need to.
yeah,
I've not gotten bored of this game. It is
yeah,
so good.
yeah. There's so much to just consider, and again, while you're playing with the same stuff every time, the rounds that it comes out and the places that they come
Yeah.
out, you're never going to play the same way every time. You can't do everything. You can try, and you can do a lot of stuff, but you're not going to be able to maximize everything.
And you'll have your favorite yellow tiles that you're going to want to try and grab,
Oh
especially.
yeah,
And when people do get that one that you want, you get furious. But then it's very pivotable. Like your strategy can pivot very easy.
yes, yeah. Look, keep your options open. Got a little bit of leeway. You know, the worst thing that happens is you can't do anything. You get a couple workers at
Yeah.
least for a die, so you're always going to get something. Your turn's never going to be completely wasted.
Yep.
That's Castles of Burgundy, a very elegant game, no matter which version you have. Just very, very good gameplay and a ton of fun. That is my number something. What was that? That was 7. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Number 6 is, I believe, a game that was on the list last year. And if I remember correctly, I think it was lower. So I think this one has been responsible for a couple of these drops that we saw earlier. And that is Azul. Yes, you're a huge jump. Number 14 last year, all the way up to number 6. From Michael Kiesling, came out in 2017. Another game, like we've said about other stuff, that has many, different versions now. I only own the base one, and I've played a couple of other ones and they're fine. I just something about this base one that is just, it's just is what it is. It's a modern classic at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It is very relatable. It is very pretty and elegant to kind of look at. It has nice little clickety clack tiles that everybody loves. And you can play, a more advanced version on the flip side if you want. It doesn't really change things all too much. But essentially, this is really an abstract tile building, game where you're trying to just maximize your points. You have these different rows that range from 1 spot to 5, and you've got to fill in that whole row with a certain color tile to be able to add that tile to your display. So you're not going to be able to fill in every single row on every single turn. Not going to happen. So again, you got to try to optimize. What's cool is that you set up the game and you got these, different circles around, and you put about 4 of these tiles on each one. And when you choose from one of those spots, but you only choose one color tile. So take all the blue, all the yellow, whatever. The ones that you don't take from that circle go into the middle. So stuff is going to keep going into the middle that's left over. And you can certainly take from the middle as well, but you're going to get dinged with a slight little penalty if you are the first person to take from that center area. And that's okay. You can, if you mitigate a little bit, you can manage it, you can figure it out, but you don't want to load up on those. But anyway, this is certainly one where you are definitely doing your own thing, but paying attention to what everybody else is doing. You need to see what tiles people are taking, how close they are to filling in a row. There's some hate drafting that goes on in this game for sure. And the longer the game goes on, the tighter it gets, because once you put a color in a spot, you can't put that color in that row anymore. It's not going to happen. And if you take a whole bunch of one, because that middle can get filled up sometimes pretty quick, and there's like, oh man, there's six black tiles there. Sure, you can take them all, but can you fit them all? If not, they're going to go down to that negative point penalty row at the bottom of your board. It's a little hard to explain to people how the scoring works in this.
Yeah.
Um, you do have to kind of, it technically is like simultaneous scoring, but it doesn't hurt to just kind of talk it out turn by turn and score each person. It's really not that time consuming.
Yeah.
But if anyone has ever played Scrabble or Quirkle, it's a similar concept where the more things that are adjacent to that tile, the more it's going to be worth, kind of a thing. So this is a game that the more I play it, the more I see and try to get a strategy, the more I feel like I can get better at the game. Um, and I think that's says something for a game that's 2017. It's getting up there. It's getting up there in board game age at this point. But yeah, like I said, a lot of other versions. I like the original just fine, and I've had a ton of success teaching this to new folks as long as you can explain that scoring part.
Yeah, yeah. This game is another one that's probably would be in my top 20, maybe top 10, and it's one that you'll teach. Most people will like it when it comes to scoring. Like, well, you just score my board, and I'll
Yeah,
come. So
exactly.
scoring is a little, and heaven forbid you accidentally hit your board and the pieces go everywhere. Your little scoring mark goes off. But I mean, you can get the overlays for that. This is if I had to guess, this is probably Chrissy's favorite game, and she crushes me at it. Like
Nice.
she'll hem and haw at the moves that I'm doing, and then at the end of the game, she crushed me by like 20 points. So I'm just like,
Yeah,
it's on a
that sounds
tradition.
like someone I know too. Yeah, Chris said the overlaps are the way to go for that. Yeah, it's what it's not even so much it's not even so much the tiles, it's the scoring cube
The
that
score,
is really the pain.
yeah,
Because that's too willy nilly up there. Oh, up and here she is.
yeah, yeah. I'll,
Ooh.
I'll take something she wants, or like I'll make her, I'll catch her, and she has to put four tiles on that bottom row. She'll call me a child, and then she'll still beat me by 20.
That's awesome. Yeah, you'll get to the point where when the round starts to kind of wind down, especially if you're playing with, well, I guess it doesn't matter how many people are playing with, but you're starting to count. All right, I'm gonna take that,
Yep.
I'm gonna get that, and it's like, ah, crap, I get stuck with those. There's nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of tense moments in the Zool for a very lovely looking game. It's got some teeth to it for sure.
Did you like any of the other versions enough to want to play it more, or are you just like I played them,
Well,
I'm
I
done with them?
guess it's forgettable because I honestly can't remember which ones I've played. I think I
Okay,
played the one with like the diamond shapes. I think that's the summer one.
Summer
Um,
Pavilion.
and I forget the other one. I may have played another one. I did try the new dual version once on BGA,
Okay,
um, and that's pretty good. I gotta say, definitely need to play it, more than once. But I was talking to Chris about it one day, and similar to the way we sort of felt about Splendor Duel,
yeah,
where it seemed like you didn't really need a two-player version of this because it plays fine two by itself.
yep,
It's a different, it feels very much like a different game, but obviously with the Azul roots. So
nice.
yeah, keep your eye on that one. I think it's going to be could be a contender for a list someday too. Excellent. All right, folks, we are in the home stretch here. Top five time. Top five. Top five. There's the next game is number five, and I'm gonna tell you it did fall, and this will be the upset perhaps of the night, if anybody cares about it that much. But my number five was my number one last year, and that's Cascadia. Now, I alluded to this earlier, that sometimes you just don't play the game enough where you remember where it's going to fall. So this falls to that. You asked me before, how do you decide between two things on Pub Meeple? And sometimes it's just like, well, I want to play this instead. You do it again 2 days from now, it could be different. But Cascadia is still a phenomenal game. I
Yeah,
love me a nature theme. I love a tableau tile laying thing. This one has just different sort of scoring conditions for the animals in the game, and it's got a very simple drafting system where there's a set of 4 terrain tiles and 4 wildlife tokens, and you're taking one pair of those and adding it to your build. If you want, you can spend a little pinecone thing to break that pattern and take one from, say, row 1 and one from 3, or vice versa. But regardless, you're going to be adding things to your area, trying to match up the terrain types. They don't have to, which is, again, something that's kind of different about the way this game works. But you do want to try, because at the end of the game, you're going to score points in 2 major ways. One is how you did on each of those animal types. So depending on the setup, they're all pretty similar in each one, but the salmon, for example, are normally, obviously they're in the water, and normally they want to form some sort of a line, like straight or zigzag or whatever. The bears tend to be in a group. The hawks, falcons, I forget. I think they're falcons. Um, Try to be sort of on the outskirts, but with line of sight onto certain things. So there's that way to score, and then you're going to score for your largest type of terrain of each one, your biggest forest, your biggest um, field, whatever. Plus, getting some extra points if you happen to be the player with the largest of those sections. So a few different ways to rack up the points here. And again, I've said it again, and I apologize for saying it so much, but when I first played this game, played it, and I was like, "Who? You guys see this game, Cascadia? Anybody see this? You guys want to play this?" Like, just talking to strangers. Like, I wanted to play it again right away, right away. A lot of love here for you, Bud, in the chat. We got Nick Nixon.
Oh, yeah. That's my daughter on my brother's account. Giving, giving me a good night. Love you.
Oh, night. Chris sharing that, yes, they have a My First Cascadia that'll be out later this year. Arwen chiming in that it moved up for her this year, mostly because of the app. Makes sense. And yes, I did see a couple videos about the junior version, and it looks spot on. I really think it'll probably make its way to my collection. I think, because
And and
that trend has been really going the right way.
Alan makes a good point, and one that I struggle with a lot is I've never gotten past the initial setup, because most of the times I play, I am teaching someone new, because I do want to, like you said, as soon as you play, you're like, it's a game you want to talk to people about and show it
Yeah,
to them. So I'd be excited to do that. I I don't think I knew there was an app, and if there was, I definitely would play it more. And I find myself, when I'm looking at games that I want to play the game day, I've brought it once or twice, but sometimes I pass it over, and I don't know why, because I do really enjoy it, and I want other people to play it. But I also think, for me, I think Harmonies is scratching this itch a little bit as well. And because that's on BGA, I play it so often. I'm like, I put both those games to the side then for when I get out in live play.
mm.
But it's not anything having to do with the game not being good. It is a
Yeah.
great game.
No, I totally agree with everything you just said. Tabletop Foundry adding that the solo mode is amazing if you have not tried it. I actually have not tried
I've
that.
not done that. No,
And poor Chris says he sucks so bad at harmonies. Yeah, I find that sometimes the games I suck at are the ones that I like the most.
I think I suck
Um,
at more games than I'm good at.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's Cascadia. Again, love good nature theme. The landmarks expansion is okay. I don't find it to be completely necessary. There are some aspects of it that I do enjoy, but I don't think it needs to have all that bloat or stuff. And I kind of hope they leave it alone at this point. But that's not for me to say.
The former number
So that being said, it is extremely interesting that you mentioned how the Cascadia itch, so to speak, is kind of getting the harmonies treatment, because that is my number quattro.
look at that.
Harmonies, new to the list, just edging out Cascadia. So yeah, very similar themes, very similar feeling games. Why am I liking this one slightly better? Well, again, we mentioned this. It's the newness of it,
Newer.
right? It's the novelty. Um, but it adds this level literally because you're now building up instead of just out. So it's not just like 3D Cascadia. It's a very different game, but essentially you're trying to satisfy these arrangements here on these cards in order to put these animal cubes on your structures to get points at the end of the game. Again, I mentioned how Takanoko had several sort of mechanisms to it that I do enjoy, and this has that feel to it as well, in that you're building out this terrain type and you're trying to get things in a certain spot, in a certain pattern. And when it clicks, like when the harmony part really works in this, oh boy, is it sweet. Because you could have something set up that scored everything it's going to score, and now something there that exists that doesn't have any cubes on it can be used for this other card that you're working on as well, and that can happen again. And sometimes you are going to get stuck with stuff that doesn't really do much for you, but in a very similar way to Cascadia, you're getting points in those two different ways. You're getting points for getting the animals to come to your area that you've drafted, and then you're going to get points for certain terrain, arrangements or amounts. So for that, I think it really, really shines. Then you add in these spirit cards that you can play with or not. I I like it fine without them. I prefer to use them. Um, they essentially give you a sort of a focus, to an extent. You don't have to build it first by any means, but it does most of the time sort of change the scoring in a good way to your benefit. So that, for example, if the fields normally score you, and I'm going to mess this up, but if they normally score you 3 points or whatever, a certain card makes them 7 points instead, or every water is going to be 2 points or whatnot. Uh, Two sides of the board as well to this, so two different ways to play. The different types of structures are going to score the same way, except for the water. So on the one side, you're trying to get the longest sort of continuous path of water. On the other side, you're sort of trying to divide your board into different islands, so to speak. Has that same nice tactile physical feel like Azul when you're going into the bag to take out these things, and a very similar drafting style in that they're in these different circles and you're picking a group to add to your board.
Yeah, and I was
Uh,
going to say your six Azul, your five Cascadia ma- made some love and out comes harmonies.
yeah, yeah. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, this is really hitting the table for me pretty often these days. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Chris. If you didn't tell someone that was an
Yeah,
advanced
very good
thing and that was just a setup of the game, I don't think they would have any problem with it. Because honestly, so a lot of the animal cards have, two or three or four, maybe even five cubes on them. So as soon as you take the card, you fill it up with those cubes, and as you build that animal's habitat that satisfies what it needs on the card, you take the lowest cube and put it onto your board. So the higher up you go in the card, the more points you're going to get. But the nature spirit ones only have one cube. So once you get them out, that's it, they're done. You do want to try to get them done early because then again, it kind of dictates what maybe part of your strategy is for how you want to build the rest of your spots out. But you may not get the things that you want. And just like Azul, you're going to get stuck with some stuff that has to go somewhere. You can't not place anything in this game. You got to put something down. And kind of like I was talking about Fromage, sometimes the ending of this game really sneaks up on you because if you're not looking at what your opponent's doing, you might say, all right, I got all this time left. I got a bunch of empty spaces. I'm close to getting this animal. And then before you know it, your opponent triggered the end of the game. You're like, oh man, now I get all that stuff. So yeah, again, obviously I'm enjoying this one a ton, or it wouldn't have been new to the list and this high up. Arwen chiming in here that it didn't hit until someone finally explained it to me again, but from a thematic standpoint. Been enjoying it so much more now. Yeah, it really does make sense when you think about it, because it's about these habitats and animals coexisting with each other in a harmonious way.
and it can trip you up because not only are you making the patterns, but you have to have that open space for the cube.
Yeah.
So you can have the pattern on your board, but you don't have the space for the cube, so you can't use it. So that's going to trip you up when you first play. So it's just really nice in getting those patterns on there with the animal cards, but also like we said with the Cascadia, with the scoring each one. So like you said, like the continuous river, the mountain ranges, the
Yeah.
individual fields. It's just it's enough to keep you coming back and not get bored with it. At least for me, and I've been
Yeah.
playing a lot of this.
Yeah. Same. Same. And to your point, I mean, I've done that. I've drafted a card
Yeah,
and
and you screw
looked at
yourself.
my board and been like, oh man, all those trees are already taken up with cubes. This card is useless. I can't even do anything with this now. And so, yeah, the fact that still happens to me means that I'm still learning the game, and another reason why it's still on the list. Thank you, Ryan. Glad to see this in my top 20. Me too. I think I had a fair amount of shakeup, some new stuff, some old stuff, some shifting around. Pretty happy with this list overall. But we're not done yet. That means there is a new number one coming up, but we're at the top three. And let's just go ahead and roll into it. So, my number three game is one that obviously I've talked about before. It has several versions. It does not show any signs of stopping. And so far, I am okay with that. And that is the Horrified Collection. Cooperative game from Prospero Hall. It was my number five last year. This is all about how can you work together as a team to defeat this set of monsters.
Yeah,
All different kinds of monsters. The original version is the Universal monsters, the ones that Ryan likes the best: Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, etc. Then you've got the American monsters, this cryptozoological, urban myth things: Jersey Devil, Bigfoot, a couple of other things I had never heard of until I got the game, like the Ozark Howler, things like that. And we got into the Greek mythology, which was like kind of a fell flat for a lot of people, but I loved it because I love Greek mythology, and I have kind of always wanted a decent mythology game, but I was always kind of hesitant to pull the trigger on any of them because they all seemed kind of heavy when I was first getting into the hobby. Like Cyclades was on my wish list for many years. But now I can just play cooperatively and defeat those Greek monsters. Now, these came out with World of Monsters last year, which has Cthulhu, of course, and a few other things. And then we had the announcement not too long ago that it was finally going to be a Dungeons and Dragons version of Horrified with the Beholder and the gelatinous cube and probably the red dragon and all that cool
Mind
stuff.
Flayer.
Mind Flayer, yeah, totally. So I'm not just getting the new versions because I'm a collectionist or whatever, the completionist, whatever the term is. They're all good and they're all different. They all come with mostly, World of Monsters was a little bit of a break, but the other ones have 6 monsters each in them, and none of them really repeat in terms of what their win condition is or what they do on their turn. There's always this unique stuff, and it's thematic. It's thematic. The Invisible Man goes to locations and just steals items from there because you can't see him. And so to defeat him, you've got to catch him red-handed and bring evidence to the police station. Okay, Bigfoot, you've got to get the photographs and recreate that classic blurry, sideways-looking thing that you see on the news all the time. It's so well done that I don't see a reason to not keep going with it. Again, at some point it may be like, okay, enough is enough, but I'm not at that point yet. Yeah, Chris saying that Horrified is what he plays when he's introducing new gamers. Totally agree with that. The fact that it's co-op is a big deal. It's all open information. Just talk out your options on your turn. You're gonna have to sacrifice some stuff sometimes. Things can get, kind of hairy at some points in this game. Similar to Pandemic. Sometimes you may feel like you're cruising along, and all of a sudden you get, you lose like 3 people in a couple turns, and now you're looking at the end of the game as a defeat. I love talking about this game. I love teaching new people this game. and I'm just excited for it to keep going. The core mechanisms don't change. It is a very simple move around the board, pick up stuff, and use it at locations to do different things. All they do each version is change the color scheme a little bit. That's it. It's still the same concept, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I've played this one. I've only played the Universal Monster one, and I remember playing it, and I'm like, this is really neat. And we actually won the first time we played, and we won. I We had to get an impartial judge for a ruling because most of us who were playing were new to it. But it was basically like I think the deck was out, but you don't lose until you have to draw the
Yeah.
card. And we
Yep.
were like, is it when the deck runs out, or is it when you draw? And we're like all sitting there waiting, and it's like you're waiting for like the the referee to come back from the
Yeah.
coach challenge, and we're like, yeah.
After further review, the play
Yeah.
stands.
But no, I played this version, and I like that you can when even when you play the like one version, you haven't played all the monsters, so you can like change them in and out. But the mythology one really stuck out for me as one I wanted to play, especially when at PAX, I think they had a guy dressed up as a Minotaur walking around.
That
I
was
think
well.
it
That was the
was
Krampus one.
Krampus. Oh,
That was
Krampus.
the Krampus. The yeah, however you
Do you
pronounce it.
have that one?
I do that. So that was at the event. That was the only thing that I was like, I'm doing this at PAX. So they had that was the holiday party. So you got to play the game with Krampus, and then yeah, you got the Krampus mini expansion to take home. So that's one where you sub in him for. I mean, you can combine as many as you want. I think in the version we played at PAX, I think they paired him up with like the Yeti, just because kind of like I guess thematically kind of made a little bit of sense. But yeah, it's funny. There's Santa Claus. There's kids that Krampus is trying to put in a sack, and you're trying to protect them, and it's good stuff. Yeah, I do have a photo with Krampus. That was one of the best sights at PAX for sure.
Can you take monsters from each set and play, or not really because they're specific to the board you have?
Yes and no. So what they did that with no, yeah, with American Monsters and it's the Greek one, I think, where they added something that was like a layer. Like you had to like discover something first to be able to do it. So you can't integrate. We think now. Now I'm even confusing myself. You can integrate, I believe, the Greek one and the World of Monsters. The other two, I don't think you can.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know if the new one, if the D&D one will be where that will fall in terms of that possibility. But yeah, you can do it to an extent,
Cool.
and there's obviously a little more rules to that, conditions that you have to read and whatnot. But um, yeah, to your point, I mean, you're gonna set it up differently, different monsters, and then you can also play against as many monsters as you want to make it just extra challenging or less challenging or whatever. And they're not all it's not a guaranteed win. Not all the same. When I played at
Yeah.
PAX, actually, it was only against Krampus and the Yeti, so only two monsters. It was a 4-player game, and it came down to the wire, and we lost on like the last turn, and we were like really close to winning. So sometimes just two monsters is all it takes. But yeah, again, I'm just pumped about new stuff for this, and so far not slowing down on it. That is Horrified, great family weight cooperative game, good for new players and anyone who's a fan of any kind of monster theme at all. All
We
right,
got
we are almost there.
we gotta get that picture of you with Krampus on the Discord. I need to see that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure it was probably in the pack section, but well, we could bring it up again. He was a good time. Love that Krampus. My number two is not new to the list, but it was not number two last year. It is often number one in a certain category of lists for me, and that'll make sense upon reveal because it is Patchwork, the phenomenal two-player game from Uwe Rosenberg that has, again, a good amount of versions at this point, including, I think, an anniversary version that just recently came out or is coming out. But boy, this is a two-player only abstract strategy trying to build out your quilt here without leaving too many empty spaces. It is a can be a very brutal brutal game scoring wise at the end. You can I just taught this to two new people last week at an event we were running, and I said I'm just going to warn you, you may get negative points in this game,
Yeah.
but you may still win. As I've often won with a negative score. But again, what can I say about this that we haven't said a lot on the channel? It's a favorite of a lot of ours, and it's a very tight and satisfying sort of display. You're gonna have just three choices of things you can add to your quilt on your turn, but you got to pay for it using the buttons as kind of currency. And then there are also points at the end of the game. So you really want to try to balance. You don't want to spend too much because you want to try to stockpile. But as the game goes on, you can go over some spaces on the time tracker that is going to give you some good income. And you want to try to rack up that button money at the end of the game because you're going to need to offset those negative scores. Because any squares that are not covered at the end of the game is going to lose you 2 points per, which can be a bit devastating. So there's the regular version, there's Americana, there's Valentine's Day, there's Christmas, there's Halloween, there's like a roll and write one kind of, I forget what it's called. Then there's like Patrick Express, and again, I think an anniversary one just came out. So no shortage of themes for this. Just kind of pick your poison, and you'll get it. Mostly they just play the same. It's basically the artwork that's a little bit different, but the concept remains the same.
Yeah, for this one, I love the dual income, whether with the button and the time.
Yeah.
Because you often want to buy a piece, but you see in the next grouping there's going to be another piece that fits perfectly. So you're like, well, can I buy a different piece that only moves me a certain amount because you'll take a second turn before you're up? Because it's not you go, I go, you go, I go. It's that who's ever last goes next, and that's a great little twist to it. And the single patches as well. Sometimes you want to race to get that because you have a single patch, and there are no single patches in the game other than the specific ones. And yeah, this is one where if I'm playing it in person, I'll probably play it 2 or 3 times in a row, just because it can be short. You can be analysis paralysis, but to an extent. I mean, you only have
to an extent. I mean, like you said, you only have 3 choices on your turn,
but you can grab them, turn them, put them on your board, and everything. But
sometimes you have no choice because you can't afford anything that's in front of you.
Yeah.
So all you can do is move anyway. My 5-year-old son has played this game many times and has legitimately beaten my wife and I, which is just amazing. But it's funny because he just plays in a way that again doesn't seem strategically sound to us, but haphazardly, sometimes it's going to work, and it works for him. He wants to just get the biggest piece that he can afford and go from there. I'll be like, dude, if you put that there, you're never going to fill this area in. There's nothing left that's going to go in there. Okay, Daddy. Oh, you beat me. Oh, wow, what a surprise. But yeah, Patrick, keep coming out with versions. I'll probably keep getting them. What can I say? I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. If I can play one each holiday, then that's a good thing. I think. What are we missing at this point? Maybe like an Easter one, I guess, or any kind of like. They could do Easter, like an Easter basket with like. I don't know what the shapes would really be though. Maybe like eggs. It's possible. Yeah. Patchwork is so fun. You are correct. All right, guys. This is at the moment some of you have been waiting for. What is the new #1 game? What took down Cascadia? Yes, fun fact. I don't know how fun it is. I do not own the base Patrick. You're right. I don't have the regular old version because it's just so boring. Why would I want that one when I have one that has, Christmas decorations on it, or eyeballs for Halloween, or red, white, and blue for 4th of July? #1 is a game that was #1 2 times ago, and they got knocked off by Cascadia last year, and now it is back with a vengeance or not, I don't know. It depends on the, I guess, the type of bird that it is, because some of them are very vindictive. And that is my number one pick, Wingspan, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave from Stonemaier Games. Came out in 2019. This is all about the birdies, a theme that I really, really, really fell for. During the pandemic, when there was a lot of sitting at home, a lot of us became bird watchers without much of an option because it was just something to do in the backyard that was away from people. And so, yeah, got the app for the, bird identifier, started getting the seed and stuff like that. I kept a little notebook. Oh, I saw a blue jay today. Oh, look, what's that bird? I don't know. Let's try to figure it out. And then you get to play the game. You're like, oh, yeah, that's the warbler thing that we saw in the backyard. Little fun facts on there. It's an engine building game about birds. And that's it. This is the most upgraded game that I own in terms of components and storage and things like that. So the box is super duper heavy, but it's just such a elegant game. You're putting out your action cubes. There's only a couple things you really can do. You're gonna try to get some food from the feeder, place some birds down in your habitats, make them lay eggs, and then draw some new bird cards. Simple. But every round there is a scoring goal that you're sort of going for, whether it be having the most eggs in the grassland section or having the most birds with this type of nest. And then you're just gonna get points straight up for birds. Some of the ones that cost more food to buy are going to be worth more points. Smaller ones, maybe not as many. But because they don't cost as much to get out, you might be able to get more of them out, fill up your board faster, and you might be going for some kind of a bonus, objective that you have, like get a certain amount of birds that have a color in their name or have a regional part in their name and things like that. So much going on. Really nice combinations can happen at some point. Oh, I lay eggs and I got this bird. He lets me do this. Guess what? Everyone takes a thing from the bird feeder. Okay, cool. So now that I know you do that, I'm going to do this and try to, capitalize on your part of that engine that also benefits me sometimes. A lot going on here. Definitely, not, I want to say it's not beginner friendly. It can be overwhelming for sure. There's a lot on the board. It looks a lot. But again, if you get the right teacher, a couple turns in, get the hang of it. I've taught this to non-gamers before, and I've had success teaching it. So it is what it is. I think if you have anyone in your life that's a birder, either they were or they just became one in the last few years for circumstances, then I think they're going to love this game. I have almost everything for this. I actually don't have the Asia one, funnily enough, although because that is the one that sort of has a special two-player variant to it that does play very well. And I have not played Wormspan either, or the new Finspan that came out. I don't think I fall into the category the way I just described, like Horrified and Patchwork, where I'm like, yeah, I'll get the new one of that. It's cool that there's a Wormspan with dragons and that they came out with a fish one, and I'll probably try to play them, but I'm not going to just buy them on the spot because of that. So that's kind of a different outlook on this. But yeah, I'm glad that this is still hanging around. It's cool that I got back to the number one spot, and you get so many cards in this game that it is really hard to see the same thing over and over again, especially the more expansions that you do add to it. I mean, I just mix everything in at this point.
Yeah, I've been playing this game since it came out and was just like the hottest thing, and I've never played with an expansion. I haven't played Wormspan, I haven't played Finspan, and it's still not boring, or it's still not predictable. It's still not feels like the same thing every time. It really is one of the first games that I saw come out, and right away it was just a hit and took off. Like it wasn't like it was a slow burn. It just boom landed, and you heard it everywhere. And whenever I talk to anyone about this game, I always bring up, have you ever seen the video of Mandy Patinkin trying to teach him this game? It is hysterical. And that's,
yes, it is.
It's not for beginners. I'm like, oh no, it's not, because I've seen.
No, definitely not. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's a good one. It's a testament to how involved we take for granted that we pick up this rule book and read it. We're like, okay, I
Yeah.
got the hang of this, as opposed to just someone looking at it for the first time. Like, what the
Oh yeah,
hell?
they're just sitting there reading it, and like one sentence just makes them crack up for a minute straight. And you're like, this makes no sense. In your mind, you're like, well, it's this, and it's like with no
Yeah,
context, you're just
like, like that
well,
game. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, it has certainly become a very mainstream game at this point.
oh yeah,
Definitely skyrocketed up a lot of lists, and I think probably I would love to know what they're at in terms of like copies sold at this point with the base game. I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to get some kind of milestone at some point to be able to put on the box at some
oh,
point
absolutely.
in the future. But that is my favorite game, according to today, and that is Wingspan. I do want to thank everybody who was hanging out in the chat and chiming in every now and again. I do want to thank you, Dan, for taking a couple of hours out of your evening to chat with me about games. I want to thank Chris for organizing everything and Ryan for putting the whole board together with all those stats and things like that. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Arwen. I appreciate that. And Chris does want to add that next week on the Express, we have, again, this is just video one of top 20 season, folks. We're just starting here. Next week, Mr. Rao is going to share his list. Working on the timing for that exactly, but he will be there. And then we've got some other folks coming up down the pike as well, including our other conductors, Chris and Ryan. So with that, I will bid farewell to everyone. Dan, real quick, before we do sign off, can you tell folks, in case they don't know, where they might find some things that you sort of produce about the gaming hobby in your time?
Absolutely. I write some articles, whether they're previews, reviews, or just letting people know what I've been playing for comicbookyeti.com. It mainly has been a comic book website, reviews, interviews, and such, but they've branched out. We've got a couple of review articles. Tyler, who's a contributor in the chat a lot with you guys, he helps me out sometimes. We've also been doing a couple podcasts. We got one tomorrow with Jay Cormier and Shad Miller, the designers of Harrow County and other off the page games. So look for that and find me in the chat and on the Discord. I love the community. I love what you guys do. Thank you for having me on. Thanks for becoming another part of my gaming group friend circle, and always looking forward to hanging out with you guys and jumping on a call aboard and talking games with you. So very much appreciate it.
Awesome. We appreciate that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to let us know in the comments if you like any of those games, and let us know what your tops are. There you go. Yeah, cozy up. Go Birds. We'll see you guys next time. Let me see if I can figure out how to put this music back on again like I did before.
Do I have to dance it out with you too?